When it comes to air quality, the bad news is that wildfires and air pollution have really degraded the quality of our air. But the good news is that we're all realizing that the quality of our air, and particularly the quality of our indoor air, is really darn important. I'm so excited to tell you about Puro Air because in 30 minutes, this device will remove allergens, dust, smoke, and gases from your room. It uses a stronger type of filter called a HEPA 14, and it filters pollutants at a microscopic level. I keep my Puro Air running upstairs where the bedrooms are all night. I love that it's quiet. Cleaner air just hits different, doesn't it? Check out everything Puro Air has to offer at getpuroair.com. That's GETPUROAIR.com. One more time for the people in the back, getpuroair.com. Well, hello there, my friends, and welcome back. My name is Stephanie Safarian, and you're listening to episode 450. Yes, that's right, 450 of Sustainable Minimalists. This is a show about intentional and eco-friendly minimalist living, and today I have a real diverse show for you today. We're covering a diverse set of topics. It's unlike the shows I normally offer up in which we discuss one topic for the whole show. Today we're talking about three very different topics. And specifically, I'm talking about what's going on in my life with regard to self-sufficiency, sustainability, and intentional living. So it's kind of like three stories today. The first one is the self-sufficiency story. It is about my experiences with a hydroponic growing tower. I received one for Christmas, and I've received a lot of questions lately about what they are, whether they're worth it. So that's part one. And I will say that in part one, when I'm talking about my growing tower, I'm not getting paid to talk about it. And so everything I say, I am 100% owning, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's part one. In part two, we have a sustainability story from my own home. My husband and I woke up one morning in January and our furnace, the floor around our furnace was covered in water. It started leaking. And so my husband and I thought to ourselves, is it time for a heat pump? Well, I'm going to go through all of that. And it's a lot, getting heat pump quotes, plus rebates, what it looks like, whether we're doing it. So for anybody who's interested in the nitty-gritty of completely changing over a home's heating system to an electric-based heat pump, but that's part two. And then in part three of today's show, we're discussing an intentional living change that I'm making in my own life. It's all about avoiding the busy trap and not rushing through my life. So that's part three. Now, I want to say too, if not all of these stories today, these three parts interest you, this is a choose your own adventure show. So go ahead, go on with your bad self and skip to what interests you. We're going to talk about hydroponic growing towers first. And then around the 15-ish minute mark, we'll talk about my heat pump woes. And then around the 28-ish minute mark, we'll be talking about avoiding the busy trap. So choose your own adventure. I certainly hope you stay for the whole show, but your time is precious. So go to what interests you. So now we're going to talk about my hydroponic growing tower. I received a garden growing tower, GARDYN tower for Christmas. What a good gift, right? So what is a hydroponic growing tower? If you don't know what it is, you know what a grow system is, right? Aero Garden. It used to be a small little growing system, hydroponic growing system for your kitchen counter. You grew some herbs, perhaps, on your kitchen counter. Easy breezy, came with the light. Done. Well, as with most things in America, the hydroponic growing is getting supersized because now there are companies selling growing towers. Now, hydroponic is a fancy word. It just means growing plants in water, no soil needed. So you're putting usually a plant that's grown in soil. The plant is getting all the nutrients it needs from the healthy soil that its roots are in. When you're hydroponically growing, you're putting food in the water, then the system, the tower, has grow lights and a water pump. It is mostly self-sufficient. And I say it's mostly self-sufficient because you still have to do stuff. You can't just sit back and relax. You have to thin out the plants. You have to trim dead leaves. You have to replace the water and add the food, those kinds of things. But when you're growing hydroponically indoors, there's no soil. There's no sunlight issues. There's no pests. And so when there are fewer outdoor variables that could impact your yield, the probability that you're going to succeed and get a higher yield is, of course, higher when you're doing it hydroponically indoors. And I have definitely seen that personally firsthand. I'm not that great at growing things. I'm getting better, especially indoors where I can control a lot. But outdoors, my garden, if I'm being completely honest, my garden is in too shady of a spot. It's more of a experiment. It's a hobby instead of a let's get an awful lot of yield. I don't get much yield some years. So I say all that to say that my growing tower indoors has improved my yield as somebody who's not that great of a gardener. All right, so that's what a hydroponic growing tower is. I do suggest you Google it if you have access to Google right now so you can see a photo of it. And as you're looking at the photo, you'll notice that they are space savers, right? You can grow a lot of big plants vertically. You do not need a lot of space. You can do this in an apartment. The garden website in particular boasts that you can grow 30 large plants in only 2 square feet. Yes, that is all true. You can grow 30 large plants in 2 square feet. Garden also says that's enough for a big fresh salad every day. I wouldn't agree with that part of the statement. I'm not getting a big fresh salad every day, but we'll get to that in a minute. Other pros to the specific garden tower I have is that the seeds are pesticide-free, non-GMO. And of course, for me in New England, right, growing indoors means that I am extending the growing season. Without indoor growing, without a greenhouse, the growing isn't going to happen in my yard just because of winter. And so I will say too, like if you have been considering an indoor growing system, you will receive all the other benefits associated with growing your own food, indoors or outdoors, right? Lowered food miles, increased nutritional benefit because your food's not sitting on a truck. You'll receive a deeper connection with your food sources. And I will say that that has been the number one pro in my household. Having this growing tower has been an A++ learning opportunity for my daughters and specifically for my 10-year-old Ani, who has completely globbed onto the thing. She harvests and eats what we grow. Like she loves getting a good salad and she eats all of it. She checks on the plants multiple times a day. She wakes up, gets dressed, goes downstairs, checks on our garden. And she chooses what we're growing next. So she really loves arugula. So yes, we bought arugula seeds. We're growing them as we speak. My 10-year-old Ani, she is all in. And that alone has been worth it for me because if I want to teach her self-sufficient skills, in this case, growing her own food, this as a learning tool has been paramount. All right. So those are the pros. The cons, you know I'm going to say it. It's expensive, man. It is really expensive. I got my system as a gift, and thank goodness, because I don't think I would have been able to afford it otherwise. The garden right now, I believe, is in the $600 range, and that's just for the thing. We'll get to cost savings in a little bit, but that's a hefty price tag, man. And I am not, or at least I haven't yet, made back $600 in produce. Absolutely not. That said, it is really nice. So on the nights when I haven't bought enough salad, we're out, it's really nice to just go over to my garden, have my daughter clip the outer leaves of my plants and get a bowl full of salad for us to eat. Like that's really, really nice, I must say. But the tower is expensive. And then on top of the tower, they really try to get you into a subscription, a monthly subscription, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So we talk about the good. Now we're talking about the bad. And the subscription goes into the ugly category, which we'll get to next. So hold on to your hats for that. But the tower is really expensive. Full stop. Another aspect to the design that you need to be aware of is that the lights, the grow lights, are really, really bright. I have had multiple neighbors in my neighborhood ask me what the heck is going on in my front room with all the bright lights, because I have my tower in it and the lights are bright. They shine through the window. And don't forget, these lights are on for 12 hours a day. You can turn them off, but if you want your plants to grow optimally, you're giving them optimum amounts of light. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about your electric bill if these lights are on, if these bright lights are on for 12 hours a day? I will say we have not seen a significant change in our electric bill. And then finally, another bad, I suppose, not a bad, just something to be aware of is that, yes, the tower I'm talking of today can grow 30 plants. However, not all 30 of my plants survived. I would say 26 survived. 26. So I don't know what happened to the other 4. I would have expected, because we're reducing variables when we're growing inside, I would have expected more like 28 to all 30 survive. So I wasn't thrilled when only 26 of my plants survived. And by the way, I did everything perfectly because I knew I was going to talk about it on this show. So it's not like Stephanie screwed up. I did everything exactly to the letter. All right. So now let's get into the ugly. And the ugly, of course, there's only one ugly, and it is the terrible, horrible subscription model. The subscription model for anything, in my opinion, kind of stinks, but especially with regard to my garden growing tower. The subscription is $40 a month. Your growing tower will work without it, and I'll get back to that point in a minute. But they give you the first month free. So a free month subscription so you can try it out. You input all your information, your credit card information in particular, and then they charge you monthly. Okay, so all right, free month. I'm going to try it, of course, especially since I know I'm going to talk to you about it. I sign up for the month, and then the second month, I do not get an email saying they're going to charge me. I do not see any way to cancel on the app. And so what I do, instead of calling customer service, I just change my credit card information. I change the expiration date to the wrong date to see if the charge will go through. Okay. I don't know why I did this. I just didn't want to get on the phone with customer service, I suppose. So I changed the credit card information, and guess what? They still charged me again with no notification. They just charged the credit card on file, even though the expiration date was wrong. Okay, so I see the charge go through. I say, well, that's my own fault. I'll do another month of the subscription. There are some perks to being a subscriber. The big one, in my opinion, is cheaper seeds. But okay, so it's my fault. I'll eat the $40 that month. The next month, the date hit me it came on too quick. I had put the date in my calendar to cancel the subscription. I missed it. And so I get charged $40. And I say, oh, heck no, I'm not being charged $40 again for the subscription. So I get on their chat bot thing on their website and say, I want to cancel my subscription. And I was talking to a real human, and the real human said, absolutely, you can do so easily on the app. And I said, oh no, you can't do it so easily. I spent at least 8 minutes of my life trying to find the cancel button and I couldn't find it. That's why I just changed my credit card information. And so then she sent me these long directions to try and figure out how to cancel it on the app, excuse me. And so, all right. And so then I say, you didn't notify me that you were going to charge me again. Where's the email notifying me of this 5 days ahead of time? I would like it if you take back that $40 charge that you just put on my credit card. And she said, no, she's sorry. She can't do that. Once I'm charged, I'm charged. that really made me mad. So I made sure to say I would be saying something on their social media accounts, and I would be telling all my friends that their subscription model is predatory. I went on, and then they canceled the $40. But my point here is to say that they made it really darn hard to get out of the subscription model once I was in it. And that to me is predatory. That's the ugly. The ugly to me does not outweigh the good. The good is that my daughter's on board, and as somebody who doesn't know how to grow stuff, I'm seeing yield. Those are all great things. But the other issue here too, let's not forget, is the plastic. You have to keep buying their seeds to fit into their system, and that's a good amount of plastic. So here's my tip to all of you who are interested in a growing tower. If you want to hydroponically grow and you have a bit of know-how, or if you have a bit of grit and are willing to teach yourself something, I would definitely suggest you make a tower yourself. If you listen to my episode with Kevin Espiritu of Epic Gardening, it was episode 429, linked in the show notes if you missed it. But if you listened, you heard Kevin say that you can make a hydroponic tower yourself for a fraction of the cost of these grow towers, which, number one, of course, are expensive at the outset, $600-ish. And number two, try to trap you into that expensive monthly subscription. So I would suggest making your own if you have those skills, absolutely. If you don't have those skills, or you don't have that interest in acquiring those skills, and you have $600 to pay for the tower, then I would recommend the tower. It has been overall a positive experience for my family. I'm happy I received it as a gift because, again, I don't know that I could have afforded the tower otherwise, but I do enjoy it. It makes growing fun. And at the same time, I'm learning stuff. So that's my hydroponic growing system. We're moving on to the heat pump, and we'll start the heat pump story and then we'll take our ad break. But let's talk about heat pumps for a minute. Why heat pumps? If you are following the news, if you're following advancements in the energy sector, you likely have heard something about heat pumps. And you've likely heard something about electrifying everything. That's the motto as we move along the 21st century. Electrify everything. Well, why? Have you ever wondered why the motto is electrify everything? Well, the reason is the electrical grid is getting cleaner. Instead of powering electricity with coal-burning power plants, let's say, or other fossil fuels, the electrical grid is increasingly being powered by renewable sources. So it's being powered by solar and wind, for one. And it's getting powered by renewable sources more and more each year. Each state has different targets, but most states have a plan. Each year, the percentage of electricity coming from renewable sources increases. And in some cases, it increases dramatically. I have looked up Massachusetts' plan before, and I've mentioned it on the show notes, but I believe by 2030, something like 85% of electricity here in Massachusetts must be powered by renewables. So that's where the electrify everything motto comes into play. And a heat pump, of course, runs on electricity. It runs on electricity to transfer heat instead of burning a fossil fuel. So theoretically, if you transitioned your home to a heat pump system, you will not be burning fossil fuels. You will be fossil fuel free. Well, was it last month or perhaps the month before that? My husband and I, we woke up, I went down to get the laundry, and guess what? Where our boiler is in the basement, around the boiler, there was a decent-sized water stain on the ground. There was water on the ground. And I said, husband, hi, we have a leak in the basement. And it was, again, decent-sized. It wasn't to the size in which we needed to panic, but it was a decent size leak. And so we mopped up the water. We ignored it and hoped that it was a fluke and wouldn't do it again. Well, wouldn't you know, the next day and the day after that, we woke up again to puddles of water on the floor. We called our boiler repair person. They came, they looked at it, they said, this thing is 20-something years old. It's time to replace it. We received a quote to replace the boiler for about $7,500. Okay, so replace the boiler, stay on oil. My husband and I, we thought to ourselves, well, we consider ourselves ahead of the curve and ahead of the environmental curve, let's say. So let's investigate a heat pump. Let's investigate it. So we got 3 quotes and we weren't thrilled about any of the quotes. So we got 2 more. We got a total of 5 quotes. I'm going to talk about the quotes, what they entailed. We're going to talk about rebates, potential rebates, and, what our plans are as we continue to think about transitioning away from oil and toward a heat pump. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to have our sponsor break first. So I'll see you in a minute. Hello, Sustainable Minimalist listeners. Are you committed to living a greener and simpler life? Well, meet Home Threads, your ally in more sustainable and minimalist home decor. As the total destination for decor and furniture, Home Threads helps you define your minimalist lifestyle while respecting the planet. Discover their exclusive Haven collection. They use many sustainable materials without compromising on style. And here's the best part. Home Threads always has the best value. It was time. After 9 years of living in our home, it was time to replace our outdoor furniture. And my husband and I, we went to Home Threads. We have a Home Threads patio umbrella and a new bench. And oh my goodness, we are so in love. Create a home that reflects your commitment to the environment. Visit homethreads.com/sustainable and get a code for 15% off your first order. Homethreads.com/sustainable. Love where you live. So many of us have chaotic closets that are crammed full of clothing items, and yet somehow we still have nothing to wear. Well, upgrading to high quality and affordable pieces from Quince when you need them is a game changer. They offer organic cotton sweaters and washable silk tops. My 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters are my go-to. Not only are they affordable, but the quality is top-notch. They wear better than the cashmere sweaters that are double their price. Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/sustainable podcast for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. QUINCE.com/sustainable podcast to get free shipping and 365-day returns. One more time, quince.com/sustainable podcast. And we're back. Before the break, we talked about my growing tower, my hydroponic growing tower, and now we're talking about my leaky boiler and what on earth my household's going to do. Okay, so just to catch you up, our boiler started leaking. We were told it needs to be replaced, and that's going to be about $7,500 just to replace the boiler. Okay. We then thought to ourselves, well, our air conditioning, our condenser is really old, and we've been expecting that to break for many years. That's going to be $7,000 when it breaks, and an additional $7,000. And on top of that, our hot water heater, that is also quite old. That's going to need a replacement in about 5 or so years. That's going to be another roundabout $7,000. So $7,000 for a new water heater, $7,000 for a new air conditioning condenser, $7,000 for a new boiler. That's $21,000 right there. Okay. But only one of the things is broken as of this moment. So, all right, let's talk about the quotes we got. We got 5 quotes. And by the way, these quotes were for all of the following action items: to remove the boiler, to remove the hot water heater, which by the way is fed by the boiler, to remove the oil tank, to replace the hot water heater with a hybrid electric water heater, and replace the 2 existing air handlers that we have with electric air source heat pumps. All of those quotes, they're doing all of those action items. The lowest quote to transition to heat pump system was about $40,000. And then the highest quote was in the mid-50s. Okay. I know. Did you just start to get anxiety? Because even me just saying those numbers is giving me anxiety. Well, you might be wondering, well, what about the rebates? There's got to be rebates to go all electric, to electrify your home. Yes. There are rebates, but they make rebates so hard, don't they? They make them so confusing. Anywhere from contact lenses to heat pumps. Oh gosh, they just make them hard on purpose, don't they? Well, there are state and federal rebates. For the state of Massachusetts, there is currently a rebate for up to $10,000. There are specific rebates associated with the heat pump itself, the water heater, and the thermostats, but altogether they max out at about $10,000. And to make it even more complicated, here in Massachusetts, they assess how much rebate you're going to get based on the weight of the stuff you're installing per ton. So the rebate is $1,250 per ton. We think that we would, if we were to go forward, we would get the full $10,000 state-specific, Massachusetts-specific rebate. Okay. Then there's also a federal tax credit. It is up to $2,000 for the heat pump at the moment. And there's perhaps, we're not sure, don't hold me to this, because again, they make tax credits and rebates confusing on purpose, but we think there is a $600 rebate for the hot water heater, perhaps. So altogether, in terms of rebates, we're looking at a little over $12,000 taken off the quote, right? So that lowest quote of $40,000 is now moving down to like $28,000. Okay, we're getting sort of closer. Let's not forget, though, that in my specific situation, our air conditioning is going to need to be replaced very soon. Our hot water heater is going to be replaced very soon, and we anticipate that plus the leaky boiler coming in at around $21,000. So $21,000 in the next 5-10 years, or $28,000 now. It's starting to look like more of a choice financially. But we need to remember too here that a heat pump no longer runs on fossil fuel. So if you have an oil person coming to your house in the winter months and silently filling your home with oil and then sticking the bill in the mailbox, you would with a heat pump, no longer have any of that. So in terms of cost savings with a heat pump, it's really hard to say how much we would be saving if we switch to the heat pump. Heck, it's hard to say if we would even be saving money at all, because sure, we won't have the oil person coming. By the way, if in terms of paying for oil, we did out the math and we're spending about $4,000 to $4,500 a year on oil alone that we're burning, right? So we're not going to be paying that anymore. However, a heat pump runs on electricity, and so we definitely anticipate our electric bill shooting up. And nobody can tell us how much our electric bill is going to go up. We definitely expect it to go up. We do not expect it to go up $4,500 a year more, because that's, again, what we're spending on oil. But we can't sit here and say right now that we're going to be saving a lot of money, an awful lot of money, because we're no longer buying oil. Okay, so I want to pause here and just mention that Elizabeth from Cleveland, hi Elizabeth, wrote to me last summer and mentioned that they converted their 1923 single-family dwelling from a gas-powered boiler radiator system to a heat pump for heating and cooling. So they got two separate systems, one for the second floor and one for the first floor, and together they cost her $23,000. She believes they are sufficient for her Cleveland winters, even in those low days that get to the teens. Elizabeth also said that her monthly electric bill has only gone up about $100 per month, which is on par with the $90 budget billing that their gas provider had been charging them for their gas usage. So really, she said it's not costing her that much more in energy bill. So Elizabeth, I just want to thank you so much for sending me that information and giving me numbers. And anybody else who has switched to a heat pump, please send me your numbers. I won't necessarily share them on air if you don't want me to, but I'm just curious as to what you were quoted, whether you did it, and how much your electric bill is now. So I'll leave that there. And now you may be wondering, well, what's your plan, Stephanie? What are you doing? Your boiler's leaking. Well, yes, our boiler is leaking. And even though it's leaking, it has not completely died yet. It hasn't died yet. So it's still working. We still have heat in our home. And so because of that, and because we're coming into warmer spring temperatures here in the Northeast, we are expecting our heating needs to decline in the next few months. So our plan, my husband and I's plan right now, is to take the spring and summer to assess our finances, maybe move some things around and make a decision as fall gets closer. And we definitely need a working heating system. And yeah, of course, we really want to heat pump our hearts out, right? I, of course, want to practice what I preach on this podcast. I'm not sure if the money is there at the moment, and I really wish that there were more incentives on the federal and state levels to entice families like mine who are ready and willing to get off fossil fuels, to entice us financially to actually pull the trigger. So stay tuned as to my home's next steps, because I don't know, it's really up in the air at the moment. But I also want to mention too, I sign up for the Washington Post's climate newsletter, and they had a piece that came out on Tuesday all about really cost-efficient ways to manage your energy input in your home. And one of their tips was something that piqued my interest. A lot of them were standard, like unplug stuff or install storm windows on your windows, like stuff we've already talked about. But one of their suggestions was one we haven't talked about before, and that was to invest in an electric blanket. Electric blankets start at around $35, and they'll allow you to turn down the thermostat on your home at night, the heated blanket, and there are also heated mattress pads, by the way. You'll sleep toasty in the winter, even though you've turned your heat way down. And because they only draw about 50 to 200 watts, which is similar, by the way, to an incandescent light bulb, the cost to run your electric blanket and or electric mattress pad would be about $20 a year if you're basing those on US electricity prices. So just some thoughts there. Maybe not a heat pump for you right now, but maybe a $35 electric blanket. Just some thoughts. And now we're going to move on to the third story today coming out of my life. And this is the intentional living story. I don't know if story is the right word. It's not a tip. I don't know what it is, but I must say I have been plagued with existential questions as of late. Like, why am I here? Why are any of us here? What on earth is the point of living? What is the point of this rat race that we find ourselves in? And I am, of course, the first to admit, I do not have all the answers. I don't even know if I have any answers, to be frank with you. But I do feel fairly confident in my belief that we are not on this planet to be busy. I feel fairly confident in saying right here and now that we are not on this planet to run around like ants in an ant farm. And so while I may not know why I'm on planet Earth or what the point of my life is, like what the point of living is, essentially, I do know that if I'm smart about it, I may as well suck out the moments of enjoyment as they come. So I best be primed and ready and willing and able to experience those glimmers of joy and peace and happiness and connection when they pop into my life. Now, if I'm busy, I'm not ready and able to identify those moments, am I? I'm going to take this a step further. Being busy keeps me from asking big questions, doesn't it? I'm too busy to let my mind wander, or I'm too busy to question whether the grind is working for me. Perhaps you find yourself too busy to question whether you're just a cog in the capitalist wheel, and perhaps you're even too rushed to decide for yourself whether you want to be a cog in the capitalist wheel. Busyness can be, for so many of us, an existential reassurance, right? Being busy prevents us from stopping and asking ourselves these big existential questions. Obviously, your life can't be trivial or meaningless or pointless if you're completely booked, right? If your schedule's full. And so I find myself wondering whether our collective desire and need to be busy, to be rushed, is in part an unconscious means by which we all can move away from discomfort, right? We rush so that we come up with solutions to problems that would benefit from us like sitting in the discomfort for a little bit, right? We rush into decisions or obligations because we just want things to be settled. Worrying too is rushing in a way. It's rushing us out of the present moment. It's uncomfortable to sit in a state of uncertainty. So we fast forward the tape. We worry about things to come. We accelerate our lives past this moment here and now into fearful future scenarios, don't we? And so writer Tim Kreider for the New York Times, he wrote, and I quote, I'll link to his piece in the show notes. It's 12 years old, but still really darn good. Tim Kreider writes, quote, idleness is not just a vacation or an indulgence or a vice. Idleness is as indispensable to the brain as vitamin D is to the body. The space and quiet that idleness provides is a necessary condition for standing back from life and seeing it whole and for making unexpected connections. How beautiful is that? And so we've all heard the advice, stop and smell the roses, right? This isn't new advice. This isn't novel advice. We've all heard it before. So that's not my thoughts for you today. My thoughts, my suggestion, my invitation to you is to do what I'm trying to do in my life, trying so hard. And that is to just simply start noticing when you find yourself rushing. So, and that rushing could be physically, yes, you could be physically rushing, moving your body, or psychologically rushing. So let's talk about that. Perhaps you might find yourself noticing that after a nice family meal, or perhaps after a night out with friends at a restaurant, you're getting antsy. Either you're getting antsy to clear the table, or you're getting frustrated at the waitstaff that they haven't come and brought the check yet, right? Both of those examples are examples of rushing. So if you find that happening, ask yourself, why? Why am I getting antsy right now? Why am I so ready to remove the plates? Why am I so ready for the check to come? Why am I so ready to remove myself from this beautiful moment that I'm in with the people that I love? Just sit there for a moment and ask yourself, why am I rushing right now? Why am I psychologically rushing? Or maybe if you're someone like me and you find yourself having physiological responses to busyness and rushing, perhaps you're trying to get from point A to point B. Perhaps you're sitting in traffic and you start to feel that pressure in your chest, or at least that's what it feels like for me, the stress. It's like an elephant on my chest. Perhaps your heart rate starts to rise. Perhaps in that moment, you just notice it, right? And you ask yourself, well, what's the worst that can happen if I'm late? It's almost always never a life or death situation. And if it is a life or death situation, then certainly rush your heart out. But if it's not a life or death situation, then notice what your physiology is doing. Just notice it and say, that's interesting. Or perhaps maybe you find yourself in the middle of enjoying something and your natural impulse is to enjoy it for just 1 second and then turn away and move on with your busy day. In these instances, I invite you to notice the beautiful thing or moment and then ask yourself, could I enjoy whatever this is for just 2 more seconds? Could I enjoy this for double the time? I posted recently on Instagram that I put tulips in my bathroom, and there's something about fresh flowers in the bathroom that lights me up. They make me so happy. It's just a simple pleasure that brings me joy. And so every time I go into the bathroom, I receive a small amount of pleasure from my pink tulips, and I love them. I just do. But what happens is that I look at the tulips, I notice their beauty, and I appreciate them, and I receive that glimmer of pleasure from them. But then I immediately move on with my life. So what I'm working on, not just with tulips in my bathroom, but with all little moments of beauty, is to enjoy the tulips, let's say, for 2 seconds. If I've been only enjoying them for 1 second historically, now I'm sitting there enjoying them for 2 or for 5. I'm extending the amount of enjoyment I get from that. I don't know why I'm on this earth. I don't know why I'm here. I don't understand what the point of living is. But I do know that if I'm here, I might as well suck the marrow out of those moments of joy. That's what we're talking about today. And so final example for you. Maybe you are like me and you are your home's general. And when I say general, I'm talking about, a war general. You're the general. You're in charge. You're the person that gets stuff done. Perhaps you're the person who ensures that everyone's eating their meals when it's mealtime, when they're showering, when they're supposed to be showering. They're getting to bed by their bedtime. This is me in my house. I am the general. My husband, he is way more relaxed about time and schedules. And guess what? He has that privilege, right? Because he has me to be the general and ensure that everything goes off without a hitch. He's relaxed because he's privileged to be relaxed because he has me. But anyway, we'll leave that there. I am working hard on being less of a militant general in the afternoons and evening and more of a relaxed and go with the flow type of mom. I'm working on it. It's hard to change my personality, but I'm working on it. I actually really love being a mother to a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. I really love it. I get so much enjoyment out of my daughters, and I hope they're getting a lot of enjoyment out of me as well. I'll be frank, I did not so much love the baby and toddler stages. I'll be completely honest. I hated them. I hated it. But I really love the ages my children are now. And so these days, my family together in the afternoons and evenings, we're doing a puzzle. By the way, plug for magic puzzles. Google it. Magic puzzles. If you have older children, I strongly suggest a magic puzzle. They're amazing. Get one, try it. They're worth every penny. They're so fun. They have a trick at the end. They're hard. They provide family bonding. They're like puzzle 2.0. It's not just a boring jigsaw puzzle. Let's leave it like that. So anyway, we've been doing magic puzzles in the evening. Why am I rushing my children off to bed if I can extend my moments of joy with them for a few more minutes? Like, what's 5 more minutes? What's going to bed 5 minutes later in the grand scheme of things? It's nothing. It's nothing. So sit in the moments of joy instead of rushing, and notice when you're rushing to the next thing. Because guess what we're rushing towards, everybody? Guess what we're rushing towards? We're rushing towards the inevitable end that is going to come for all of us at some time, hopefully a long time from now, but who really knows? So when you experience a moment of joy, enjoy it. My final word for you today is, of course, yes, to notice when you're rushing through your life, because the best investment of your limited time on earth is to spend it with the people you love and with the people who love you back. So that's my final word for today. Real quick, before we say goodbye, we do have an eco tip, and it is super practical. It comes from Julie. Julie says she reuses a lot of glass jars to store bulk food items, but sometimes you know it to be true. If you love jars, there's that lingering smell. She learned recently that if you add a few drops of yellow mustard into the jar and then some water and then you swirl it around, the odor gets removed. She doesn't know how or why it works, but she says, oh my goodness, yes, it works. She does want me to add in the caveat that it doesn't seem to work on metal lids. Try baking soda on that, everybody. But yes, you've heard it here first. Thanks to Julie, yellow mustard can remove odors from glass jars when you're looking to reuse them. Love it. I'll see you tomorrow for headlines. Don't miss headlines. Remember, stay informed. Don't look away. That's tomorrow. And then on Tuesday's show, we're discussing family dinner. We're bringing back the family dinner, the benefits, the why, the how, all of it. I'll see you then. Reach out if you need me. Thanks for listening and take care.